Hello and welcome back. In this video we will be learning about what are functions in Dart. We will be exploring all the different type of functions with the type of arguments, parameters, return types, anonymous functions and input functions. So without any further ado, make sure you have watched the previous tutorials because those are the foundations laid out for this tutorial. So let's get started. So first thing first, I have got my void main method up and ready. So what we can do, we can write a function outside of our void main, because at the total our void main is also a function at the end, right? So we are completely free to write a new function outside our void main. Now what is function? Consider function to be a person who will be completing a specific task for us. Now it's depend on us that what type of calls, that is what type of callbacks do we need to give that person. And the callbacks are nothing but a type of parameters and arguments. So without any further ado, let me show to you your first function. So here I will be writing my first function, which will be void say my name. It will be simply calling out your name. So for this I'll simply write a new print statement for now. So here I'll simply say my name is Abhishek. Easy function. We have written a function type to be void, that is it is returning nothing to us, the function name, the parentheses and the curly braces, and whatever we need to execute we have to write it under this parenthesis, right? That is the curly braces. So now under my void main method I need to call my function, right? Writing a function is a different thing and calling your function is a different thing, right? Most of the programmers don't call their functions and get stuck in the same problem for hours, right? So make sure you call your function. So for that purpose simply say my name. Once you have written this, let's run our execution code, which is dart run main.dart, right? Once you have run this, you can see you will be getting our output, which is my name is Abhishek. Now you can change this thing as much as you want. Let's say my name is Aniket, and if I simply run this command one more time, I will be getting my name is Aniket. Now this is known as nothing but simply a base function, but the base syntax for the function, right? We have got our function type, which is void. Void means the following function will be returning nothing to us. Now I will take a more deeper dive in return statement in some while, but for now simply understand that my say my name function is returning me nothing. It is giving me nothing. That's why I am free to write the function type to be void, else I have to write here different data type, that is different function type. And the syntax of function is very easy. Simply give its type, its name, the holder for all our parameters, the curly braces, and write your body, right? Now let's move to the next function. This is known as normal function, right? Let's call it a normal function. After this, let's try to write a function with arguments. Now how to do that? Same syntax. I'll simply say void say my age for now, and here I'll write my function name say my age brackets curly braces. Under this curly braces we have to write our body. Now let's try to give some arguments to it, but before that I'll simply say print my age is the particular age, right? Now what I'll do, instead of hard coding the value under the print statement, I'll simply write here my age, which is integer age. Now pay attention to the data type of your parameter. Now many of us know, because age is an integer, it is a number, not a boolean, not a string, nothing, it is a number. That's why I am able to write my age to be integer. And here to call out the dynamic value, you have to write a dollar, use curly braces, and under this curly braces you have to write your parameter, that is your object, that is my age. Now once I have written this thing, I can comment out say my name, and I can simply say my age. Now say my age will be strictly requiring age here as a parameter, right? So simply write here age and also write here colon. Once I have done this, simply run the following script, and here you will see my age is 21. Now I can edit this function as much as you want. I can simply say 24, and if I run it out, my age will be 24. Now I can call the function more than once, right? If I simply say here say my age, and let's say 21, let's say 13, something like this. And if I run the following script, it will be printed 3 different times with 3 different values, right? So this is the power of argument. That is, you don't have to hard code the value. What hard coding means? Hard coding means writing static values here, right? We can have dynamic values under our function with the help of arguments. So here let's say function with arguments. Easy. Now let's delete this function, we don't require them. Let's comment it out. Now let's move forward to different type of arguments. Now these are known as normal arguments, right? We provide a data type and we provide an argument type. Now let's move forward and let's try to write function with required arguments, right? It is a new type. So here I'll simply say function with required arguments. So for this, what I'll say void say my age with required args, right? A function name which will be more easy to read us out. Now here, as usual, it will be requiring brackets and curly braces and its body, right? The body will be nothing but the same thing. So I'll copy the following statement and paste it here, right? Now we will be requiring our age, but instead of having this normal parameter, what I'll do, I'll simply say here a required argument, and here I'll simply say integer age. Easy. There is no difference under the body, but only the difference is about adding a curly braces and a required keyword. Now let's call out this function. So to call it out, simply say my name with required args. Now as soon as I paste enter, you can see it will call out a named argument which will be age and age. It will be specifically saying us that you will be requiring age here. But under the case of say my age without any required arguments, with normal arguments, it was not prompting us to write here age. Right, it was simply adding here, that is, if I remove it, it was simply giving us an error that a positional argument is required, right? But it was not saying what type of argument, what was the argument title, right? So with the required arguments, we have a benefit that the following age or the parameter name will be called out, right? So let's call it 21, and if I run it out, the output will be the same, my age is 21. Now you can add multiple arguments in any function. For example, if I say here, let's say one more required argument of string of name, right? Let's say username. Now here what I can do, instead of my age, I can simply say a name. So I'll say names age is age, right? So if I go here, you can see it will be showing me an error that one more argument is required. So if I simply say here name, it will be simply saying us Abhishek. Easy. Now let's run the following command and we'll get the following output of Abhishek age is 21. Now pay attention, whatever from argument that we have declared here, the data type should be remain the same throughout the flow. That is, if I simply say my age is not 21 but false, I will be getting an error here that the argument of boolean cannot be assigned to a type of integer because we have assigned here an integer, right? But sometimes what happens, we don't know the data type, right? For example, if you are working under a big Flutter project, we don't know the function data type, right? For that purpose, what we can do, we can change it to dynamic. Now as soon as I rename it to dynamic, the following error is gone because the dynamic holds all type of data type, right? It is a parent data type of all data type. So if I simply clear it out and if I run the following command, you can see Abhishek age is false. We can have any sort of data type, but it is not a good practice to use dynamic if we know the data type, right? We know that age will be integer, so let's make it integer, right? And as soon as I make it here, let's make it 21 and run our following code. Right, functions are very easy. You simply have to understand what are the required arguments and how should be the body. Right, now these are functions with required arguments. Now let's try to learn about functions with optional arguments. Right, so let's make it optional. Now I'll copy the entire same thing and I'll paste it here. Right, but here I'll simply say with optional arguments. Easy. Now what I'll do here, I'll say the following string name is not required but optional. Right. So to do that, what we have to do, we have to simply remove the we have to simply change the following string to nullable string. Alright. Now as soon as I do here, what I can do here, alright, let me show you how will be the case without optional argument. Right. So if I simply copy this thing and if I paste it here, let's say without optional argument. Right. So what I'll do here, I'll simply say my string name, similar thing, but what I'll do, let's comment this thing out. And I'll say my age without optional arguments, and here I'll simply say my age is 21 and my name is null. Right, as soon as I do here, you can see I will be getting a runtime error, and if I see the warning, it will say the argument type null cannot be assigned to a parameter type of string. Right, because we are strictly saying that the following string is not nullable, it has some value. Now what I can do, I can say my age is with optional arguments, that is the string can be nullable. And for that purpose, what I can do, I can say my name with optional args, and as soon as I do here, I can say my age is 21 and my name is null. let's say the data from our database is not fetched and we are getting a null value. At that point we can also add a name to be null, and if I do it here, you can see null's age is 21. Now at this point what we can do, we can use our null safety knowledge here. Now in the previous videos I have shown you what is null safety, how you can use it, right? So what I'll do here, let's say dynamic underscore name should be equal to name. If the name is not defined, I'll simply use another name, let's say user, right? If the name is not defined, I'll use user. Now I can simply use name just like this, and if I run the following command one more time, you can see the default value will be printed, that is user's age is 21, because we are saying that the name is not defined, it is null here, right? So with the help of this we can use null safety with combination of functions and make our code, make our project more stable and more good, right? Now you can simply say the thing will be string as well, because we already know that the following user is a string. If I run the command one more time, there will be no difference, user's age is 21. Right, now these are functions with optional arguments. Now let's learn about functions with default arguments, right? Yes, I know there are a couple of different type of argument types, but we have to bear with them, right? So let's say default one. Now what I'll do, I'll simply copy the same thing here, and I'll simply say here default args, right? Default arguments. Now to define a default arguments, you cannot write required arguments with default arguments, right? Either you have to write your required arguments or default arguments, right? So what I'll do, I'll remove the following syntax from this side. Alright, let's try to define a new argument, right? Let's try it out just for the sake of your curiosity. So I'll simply say here this, and now you can see it will be showing us an error. It will be saying that expected identifier, that means that the following required arguments will be not working here, right? So what I'll do, I'll simply remove the following thing, and I'll simply say here, first of all int age, right? Pardon me, int age, and after this I'll simply say here a default argument of name. So what I'll do, I'll simply say string name should be having a default value of user, right? Now as soon as you do here, you can see the following thing will be giving us a warning that the name is defined, we don't require to add a null safety thing here, right? So I can remove this and I can add my name here, right? So now what I'll do, I'll copy my function name, or instead of copying, let's hover up and I'll simply say my name is default arguments. Now if you have paid attention, we have provided two different arguments, int age and string name, but still we are prompted to write a single argument of age. Now let's do this and let's run our following function, that is, let's call our following function. Now as soon as I do this, you can see user age is 21, but what I can also do, I can say here Abhishek, and if I run the following command, you will get the value of Abhishek age is 21. Now what default argument will be doing, if the value will be null for name, it will be adding a default value of user. Now this thing is same as this line, right? We are adding a null safety that if name is null, we are adding user. Similarly, if here name is null, the default value will be user, right? So no matter if you have a default value null or not, you can always use the value of user. But as soon as you write here, that is, you provide here a value, the following user value will be demolished and we will be getting the value of Abhishek, that is Abhishek age is 21. Now this is how you play with default arguments, right? Now also you can add as many default arguments as you want. For example, let's say boolean is sleeping is equal to false, the default value will be false, and here I'll say is the sleeping or not to be true or false, right? And here I'll simply say here the value of is sleeping, right? The same thing will be now here, you are not prompted here, but the value will be false, right? Alright, let's run the following command one more time. Alright, so you can see Abhishek age is 21, is sleeping is false, but you can see I can add one more parameter here of true, and as I do here, and if I run the following command, I'll be saying Abhishek is sleeping is equal to true. Right, now you cannot add some random parameters, right, because it is not defined under a default list, right? So let's remove it out. So this is how you play with different type of arguments in Dart, right? Now what I'll show to you what are different type of data types for function, that is function types. Now in all of the following things, we have seen the type of void, that is, we are not getting any return thing. Now let's try to also explore the return statement and the type of function types. Right, so for that purpose, what I'll do, I'll simply say void calculate sum, a new function for calculating sum of two numbers, right? So here int n1 and int n2 are arguments, a body, and under body I'll simply say int sum should be equal to n1 plus n2. Now I have also shown the following arithmetic operator in the previous tutorial, so kindly watch that if you don't know what are operators. Right, so I'll simply say print the sum is sum. Right, now whenever you are declaring your dynamic value, you can also use dollar quotation without brackets, because the value is here a single form. That is, if I simply write sum, it will be working up and ready. Now what I'll do, I'll simply go up and I'll simply call out my function of calculate sum. It will be requiring two numbers, so 1 and 2, so the value will be 3. So here we will be getting the sum is 3. Right, so right now we are given here the void type because we are not getting any return statement. Right, so let's say function with without return statement. Right, so now what I'll do, I'll try to get the value from my calculate sum. So to do that, I'll copy the following thing. I'll say with return. Right, so for this what I'll do, I'll simply say, instead of printing this statement, what I'll do, I'll simply say return the sum is sum. Right, now here you can see the value of string is here, but we are given a following function type to be void. So what I can do, I can simply say a string, that is the value that calculate sum with return will be giving us will be a string, because this thing is strictly a string. Right, now if I go at the top and let's say calculate sum with return, let's say 1 or 4, and if I call it out, now let's see the result. You can see we won't be getting any result because we are returning the value here. We have to also call the following value. So to call the following value, you have to simply wrap the entire function with a print statement. Now as soon as I wrap up my function with print statement, and if I run my following command, the following sum will be printed, that is 1 plus 4 is equal to 5. Right, n1 plus n2 is equal to the following value, that is sum is sum. Right, so whenever you are declaring your function, that is you are taking some value back, if we are having some return statement, for now you have to print the following value. Right, but in the case of calculate sum without return statement, we are simply printing the following value, we are not returning anything, so we don't need to call out a print statement. Right, but under the case of calculate sum with return, we are returning the string, and to call out that string we have to print the value. Now what you can also do, you can also do this thing, this return the entire sum as well. Right, so to do that we have to manipulate the following type and make it integer, because the sum will be always integer. And as soon as you do here, and if I simply clear everything out, and if I run my following dart file, you will be simply getting the output of 5, not any string, because we are strictly returning the sum, which is 1 plus 4, which is 5. Now you can also do this thing, that if you can assign the following function to a new value. Let's say sum is equal to calculate sum with return, let's say 4 and 5, and you can simply print the following sum variable. Right, now as soon as I do this thing, I will be simply getting my value, which will be 9. Alright, so this is how you can assign the following value of calculate sum with return to a new value and print that value. Now the same rules apply everywhere. You cannot have the data type of string to this, because we already know that the return type of our calculate sum with return is integer. Right, so you have to strictly give it a sum. Now this is how you play with return statement. Right, if you have to return some value, simply manipulate that under a print statement, or under a working code you have to assign it to some other variable. Right, so after this, the final turn is for the input statement. Let's try to take input from our terminal. Right, so to do that, what we have to do, we can go at the bottom. Alright, function with return statement. Cool, function with return. Now after this, let's try to learn about how to take input. Alright, so here I'll simply say take input from the user. So here I'll simply say a new function which will be void, because we don't know the return type of it. So let's say void read my name. Alright, now we are not taking any arguments here, because we will be taking the value straight from a terminal. So right now what I'll do, I'll simply say print write your name. Right, just like this, and I'll simply say string your name is equal to std in, that is standard input, dot read line sync. Now you can see you will be getting an error here that the following username can be null. So to make it null safe, we have to simply add here a question mark. Now here I'll simply say here print your name is your name, right, our variable, just like this. Right, now let's try to execute the following method, that is function. So I'll simply say read my name. We are not taking any arguments. So if I run the following script, it will simply ask to write your name. So let's say Abhishek, and if I place here, you can see your name is Abhishek. Now under our Flutter code, we won't be using this thing of reading the foreign data from a terminal, but simply for your knowledge that you may use under your interviews or any other thing, simply take the following knowledge of how to read value from your terminal. So this is how we will be playing around functions. We have seen a normal function with arguments, it will be requiring a normal argument. Function with required arguments, it will strictly require the value and it will be calling it out, that is age and name. We have seen what are optional arguments, we have seen what are default arguments, function without return statement, function with return statement, how to read value from them, and also how to read values from the terminal. Now this is all that you require as a beginner to learn about functions. Now most of the things might go away from your head, so try to practice the following function one more time. The code is under description, check it out, use the following code for your practice. All the best. Now make sure you are following me over to my Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, everywhere, because in the next tutorial I'll show you what are classes, how to use classes and function combined. So make sure you pay attention in the next tutorial, and I'll see you soon.